Welcome to the show. This week I have the honor and privilege of breaking bread with Marilyn Redmond. Now, Marilyn describes her life's purpose as helping others find health, happiness, and prosperity. Marilyn, it's amazing to have you join me.
Well, I'm so thrilled to be here and have this opportunity. Thank you for inviting me.
The pleasure is all mine. I've been looking forward to this chat for such a long time. Let's start at the very beginning, Marilyn. You're a retired teacher and an ordained minister for spiritual counseling and healing at the soul level. What made you want to become a minister, and why is healing at the soul level so important to you?
Well, I was born into a dysfunctional family that was mentally ill with alcoholism and a lot of abuse, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And so I was very one scared, timid child and very much a victim, hopeless, helpless, and just felt my life was going to always be that way because I didn't know there was another way to do it. Through trying to get help, I went to a psychiatrist and got Valium. That's what he gave me for the anxiety I was going through, and I got addicted. And I ended up in treatment where they showed me a spiritual path to replace the medications, the pills that I was being given by the medical profession. And there's a joke in our country that the doctors give women Valium because they have a Valium deficiency, but what it really did was addicted me. And so coming out of that place, I wanted a better life, and that spiritual path was introduced to me through treatment. And as I started getting into recovery, I found that spirituality is a path of growth and growing up. And I didn't have to stay that scared little child anymore that I was, because I was my emotional growth was stunted at the age of 3 when I saw my father beat up my mother. I thought he was going to beat me up next. And so I wanted to come out of that space. And believe it or not, I taught school through all those years that I was emotionally 3 years old and actually was very successful. But it comes a time in your life when you have to look at what's really going on emotionally, not just looking good outside, but inside what's going on. And as I was on the spiritual path, I found a class that would help me spiritually grow. And that was actually took this class several times where that became ordained as a spiritual minister. And part of the classes were about counseling. Part of it was becoming a medium. Part of it was healing, talking to people on the other side that had passed over. It was a real complete class of spiritual growth. And I've taken other classes since then that have helped me come into understanding. I became internationally board certified to do regression therapy. And I'm also on the American Board of Hypnotherapy, because when you go into an altered state, you bypass the ego messages of the brain. All the negativity is no longer running your show when you're in meditation or an altered state. And so in putting my clients into that altered or regressed state, we can go directly to the soul and reframe or readdress the issues that are causing the trouble to the person and heal it. So it's not just saying affirmations in your head. It has to come from your heart. And most people have real good, they say things, but they don't have the emotional connection to make it happen and multiply and expand so that the energy actually projects out from them. What I found out is that I was such a scared person and so terrified. My fear actually projected onto my children I was raising. And even though I wanted to love them, the love was stopped by the fear I was raised in. And so you have to release the fear, the guilt in my case, and shame, and all the other negative emotions so the heart can open up and actually let that love come out and expand into your world. And that's when the law of attraction will bring back more loving answers that will match the love you're sending out. So the more you release the past and move into today, which is reality and is all there is, and today everything is just the way it should be, needs to be for what's going on. That's the here and the now is perfect. But our past is what's been blocking that happening. And my books, and the one you published for me, Paradigm Busters, is the detail of how to release your past so you can live in the now and live in your heart. When you come from your heart, it sends out to those around you. Your energy is higher. People will be attracted to you because you have this wonderful positive energy that, people, it's like a magnet. When you change inside, instead of repelling people, you're actually going to be attracting them. You become a magnet, and people will grow from that. And so you can help them release their negativity because you've done it yourself. And that's the trick for a good counselor. If a counselor has released their past history and is coming from the present, they can really help you because one soul attracts to the other soul, and it's a very healing experience. Many, many counselors have not done the work. They've taken classes and sat in seats and read the books and turned in the paperwork, but they haven't changed their heart. You need to find a counselor who has done the work themselves and can share it with you. That when you share something, it expands, and that's called love. And when that happens, then the person that you're helping will actually benefit and have a productive results. And it's not just showing up and sitting in a chair at a counselor's office. It goes deeper than that. And so in doing that, my life has totally changed inside out. And I have moved from a marriage of domestic violence where he was trying to kill me and I was trying suicide to get out of it. I now have been in a marriage, or it's like a marriage, for 22 years of unconditional love. He has never done one thing to ever hurt, harm, or distract me from what I need to do. So you can change yourself and then move into the life that you always wanted.
It sounds like what you're describing goes beyond the idea of just positive thinking then.
Exactly. You have to become what you want. One particular day, I was having a meltdown, you might say, and I'm screaming at God, I will not want to be in another battering and abusive marriage of rape. And God came in and told me, then you have to become the person you want to attract. And I made a list of those qualities and characteristics I wanted in a partner. And I had to become those characteristics. And so in changing who I am from a fear-based person, I'm no longer fear-based, into a loving-based person, I actually attracted another love-based, spiritually minded person, but he's coming from his heart and not his head. And so it's a real attraction of a relationship that are like-minded. And so it's a matter of, I use affirmations to remind me to stay in my heart. And the real trip of life is to move from your head into your heart. That's the spiritual path. And so the more you release and let it go, let go and let God, some people say, the more you accept the love coming in, then you have more and more to share. And the more you give to others, the more you have to share. It just gets bigger and bigger. And so your life grows and expands in ways that are, in my case, I never thought I would be the person I am today that I was when I was earlier, before I turned 45. I never thought I was going to ever be have a better life. And today it's better than I could have ever imagined.
It's interesting you say that because quite often you hear people saying that they want their life to be different. They want their life to be better. But the one thing they rarely ever think about is how they can be different, how they can be better. And that seems to be quite an important point, doesn't it?
Well, like attracts like, and I had to become, in my case, I had to let go of my fear. Fear is not real anyway, I found out. And all the guilt was unnecessary. That's how my mother guilted me, and I don't need to be guilty. Today, I was born and created in love, the image of my Creator. So what's there to be guilty about? And churches often, in the one I went to, was very guilt-stressed, and I don't have to buy into that today. And because of the abuse I went through as a youngster and growing up and in my marriage, I always had this shame. I felt shamed. And what I found out is I'm just as good as anybody. And these things were my lessons in life to grow beyond them. And so many people have these obstacles in their life or difficulties, and they accept it. And that's what I did for many years. I accepted that was my path. And when I got onto the spiritual path, I discovered that I could outgrow that childish reaction to all those experiences that I did go through that were so terrifying and abusive. And I could convert them and heal them with love. Love heals. And so when you find the self-love and the self-esteem inside, then you can replace the guilt and the shame and the fears and the other anger and resentments. All of those stop your being in that self-love, and it's from the past. And I'm really working on realizing that anything that comes up negative is just a memory of the past. It's history. It's not in your now. And to even just discard it, let it go. Thank you for, when I read one book and she said, thank you for the information. You can leave now. I like that one. I don't have to buy into all that craziness from the past. It can leave. And I can live in the love and now of what is reality.
So how do you go then from experiencing feelings of frustration and fear, anxiety, panic, self-loathing, I guess? How do you go from there to becoming that better version of you? What do you do?
Well, I have a little form that works very well. When I'm pointing my finger at somebody else, I'm also have 3 fingers pointing back. I have to take a look at my inventory, not somebody else. I can't blame anybody for what happened to me. It's my path. They're my teachers. So what are they teaching me? Where have I been dishonest with myself? Where have I been selfish with myself? Where have I been in fear? And who am I being inconsiderate of? And when I'm reacting from all those negative situations that are whatever destructive, and as far as I'm thinking, when I can see that every time I was in fear or guilt or shame or anger, I'm giving my power away to somebody else. And so when I get out of that and say, okay, how am I using that person to make me feel secure? How am I using that person to give me a financial basis? That's one of the reasons I was married. How do I use that person to further my ability to handle life? Why am I attached to that person, or why am I looking to somebody to save me? That's why I have a spiritual path today rather than a religious one. Nobody has to save me today. God's grace is sufficient. So I was looking outside of myself for all my answers, and I can't use other people, places, or things today. I have to call on my higher power in meditation, and that replaces it. Because if I'm then coming from love, you can't have fear and faith at the same time. So if I'm walking in faith, there is no anxiety, there is no stress, there is no anger and resentment. They played their part for me to find the now and not stay in the past. And I don't have to live there. So they actually put it in, it's really, some people call it karma. Our energies are not just of this lifetime. So whatever that is coming into my life is a reflection of something not necessarily in this lifetime, but it could be a past lifetime. And that's why I do past life regressions with people. In my case, I know some of my past lives and how they have affected my life today. And it's really kind of an interesting thing. I'm in changing what I used to do with my half-sister, how I feel about her, how I look at her, whatever. She stole my inheritance, and how I've dealt with that. And this year for Christmas, I'm actually inviting her for dinner. And there was a time when we weren't even talking. So when you change yourself and see these people were actually helping you and bringing it to your attention that you needed to change your attitude about it and see where have you been dishonest with yourself. Well, thinking that they're a bad person, they're not. They're just a child of God too, and they're just as wounded as you are. And when I realized my half-sister had gone through as much abuse as I had, or even worse in some cases, I started having compassion. So I try to find forgiveness, gratitude, compassion, and unconditional love for those people around me today instead of say they're the bad guy.
I like that phrase. You can't have fear and faith at the same time. I'm going to remember that. But let's talk about relationships. Marilyn, in your opinion, do birds of a feather flock together, or is it a case that opposites attract?
Well, that's a good question. In my case, birds of a feather do flock together. That was one of my mother's sayings. Um, I was brought up in this dysfunctional family of domestic violence, addictions, mental illness, sexual abuse. So guess what I married? I married domestic violence, addictions, sexual abuse, mental illness. He had the same history as I had, like does the track. But what I know today, we were two peas in the same pod, and he had those same characteristics that I had to heal in me. He was my mirror. And so what I've discovered in a relationship, instead of trying to protect yourself and defend yourself, you give that up. You don't have, when you defend yourself, you're actually pushing against the other person, pushing them away. And that's what was domestic violence was all about. I was always trying to be safe. And he felt it as an attack. Now, this is at a subconscious level. It took me 18 years to figure this one out. I actually experienced feeling that I was not sending him love when I was staying and protecting myself. I was actually pushing him away, thinking that would protect me. The reality is if I quit pushing somebody away, then they're not going to push back. And so when he attacked me, people saw that physically. They didn't know I was trying to stay safe emotionally. And it was like a poker game. One person raises the ante and the other person responds and raises the ante. And pretty soon it's called domestic violence. But it was started at an emotional level and became physical. And I think many people do that without even realizing, trying to defend themselves. They're actually producing and aggravating the problem and making it worse, and to build into a more difficult spot where people, in my case, can get hurt, because he literally was trying to kill me. And I was so devastated. I was emotionally 3 years old, as I said earlier. I had no tools or ideas how to do anything differently until I found a spiritual path. So, when I actually, one night he tried several times to kill me. And one night I came home from a meeting and he was enraged and that I'd gone off and had stayed home and tried to deal with the problem he had at work. And so he was after me and chasing me around the house, got me cornered, and I was petrified because he was totally, overwhelmed with being, he was going to get me. And I knew that was the end of me. And time stood still. God came in, and he was held by angels, so he couldn't address me. He couldn't come closer. And I'm petrified because I'm standing behind a little twin bed in a small little bedroom, cornered. And he had jumped over a king-size bed to strangle me one time. So there I am, just totally petrified. And the voice inside said, Marilyn, pray God forgive him, for he knows not what he does. God forgive him, for he knows not what he does. God bless him. And I said that inside. And I was then told I could leave the room. And I said, well, you got to be kidding. He's standing right by the door. If I touch him or whatever, he's going to get me. And so angels escorted me out of the room. And I went into the hallway. And I wish I'd had a camera. The look on his face was just absolutely amazing, that he couldn't come closer and hurt me. And he went off to the other side of the house. What I found out is when you pray for a person, they cannot attack you. Instead of sending out your defensiveness, you send love. Love is the armor of God. And when you're sending love to everybody, you are in the safest place you can be. And so that's what I try to come from today. I have tried to forgive everybody in my past that ever hurt or harmed me, and send love and forgiveness, give it up, it was the past, and send love to those people because they showed me how to move into being a love-based person. And today I don't have people threatening me or trying to kill me or hurt me or harm me or be, difficult to be around. It's all loving. It's a loving relationship with the fellow I'm with. He sends me love all the time for my arthritis and has kept me healthy. And he's got his problems, and I send love to him and help him with his difficulties that are mental and emotional. We help each other And it's on the basis of our hearts are open and we're not defending ourselves, but we're trying to help and assist each other, and we help each other. And that's what love's about.
Wow. Okay. Well, I guess that answers that question. It's all about love, and I think love is probably the most powerful force in the universe.
Exactly.
I'm in the studio talking to ordained minister for spiritual counseling and healing, Marilyn Redmond. Now, Marilyn, you're one of the contributors to the book Believe and Succeed, The Law of Attraction Uncovered. And your chapter was all about vibration. What are vibrations and why they're so important?
Well, that's an excellent question. A lot of people don't understand this at all, so thank you for asking. Vibrations are another word for energy, another word for consciousness, another word for that the source, that which is in everything. And sometimes it vibrates at a low pace or a high frequency. And at the low frequencies are the fear, guilt, shame, and negative energies. And that energy has been used against us in our lives for centuries at this point, since Atlantis. If you read my chapter, you'll see the history of, we came in as spiritual people, actually without bodies. And then as we formed into bodies and became humans, there was in Lemuria, this happened before Atlantis, in Lemuria, the monasteries taught spiritual paths for people, to grow and grow spiritually. And Lemuria exploded, and many people went to Atlantis and other places around the globe. When those that went to Atlantis decided, well, gee, this energy, if we keep people in that low energy, we can dominate them. We can tell them what to do, keep them a victim, and they're our slaves, and we can use them for our benefit, and they won't have their own lives and their own methods of having their accomplishments for their own personal benefit. So the ones that we call them the dark forces that kept us in low energy, have different names now in our civilization, but at that time they were called the sons of Belial. And I think that's what they're called in the Bible. And then there were the ones that wanted to stay spiritual and stay in higher vibrations of love and light, and they were called the Law of One. And the dark forces took over the government, infiltrated all our different activities and businesses, organizations throughout the world, and kept all the people under their oppression. And that's what's going on with the government in all the countries of the planet right now, is that darkness, those low vibrations, are coming to the surface for the light to obliterate that oppression that we've been under. We're moving into the light. That's awareness, that's ascension. Different people have different terms for that. We're moving out of the darkness of the past and coming into our own individual rights of who we are as a person, and not being used. The taxes, I don't know how it works in other countries, but in the United States, our taxes are siphoned off to those dark forces, and they have used them in very negative satanic ways against us, and taken advantage of people through heavy interest rates in various ways to just keep collecting money from people. And so you have to have a job and pay your taxes, of course. And so they keep profiting from our taxes, and that's all being changed in the United States. There's a big changeover that's going to happen on the planet, actually, to move us into the higher vibrations of love, where everyone is equal, cares about each other, has gratitude and compassion for each other, unity and community. We're moving into helping each other, not taking advantage or being selfish of others, but how can we be helpful? So we are moving from the fearful-based low vibrations into the high-based loving vibrations. And of course, there's different levels as you go up into the cycle of consciousness. It's in the book that you published my chapter. I have a couple charts in there that shows the vibrations moving up through higher and higher elements into the what we want to call peace on earth. And when we get into that highest elevation, we will have come home to our source, and we will all be one, and our lives will be much different than they are today.
So this move to a level of higher vibration, is it a global one, or are we talking about particular countries?
It's actually universal. The whole universe is changing. What's going on planet Earth is actually affecting the other planets and the other civilizations on other planets, because it's all one energy. And so if you wiggle your finger, it affects everything in the universe. So it's every vibration is reflected to all and affects all. So it's a matter of saying, I choose to not have the life I used to have from fear. I choose to be a love-based person where I can be helpful to others, and we can come together and be cheerful, happy, and enjoy our lives. Life is to have joy. And we have a beautiful planet with mountains and deserts and oceans and all kinds of wonderful places to visit, national parks in the United States that are Grand Canyon, mountains, Mount Rainier's, various beautiful places to go see, the Hawaiian Islands and whatever. And we're here to enjoy all that. We don't have to stay bound to jobs for as many hours in a day as we have. We're going to actually have shorter work weeks coming up in the near future. With more money, our tax money is going to be returned to us. This is called Jacera, if you've heard of it. And it's for the whole planet, where money that was wrongly taken from us is going to be returned. And so people have the ability to say, yes, I want to help this. I know one fellow who is having others help him find clean water for the Indians in one part of the United States, because they only have contaminated water down there. And he's trying to help that community and that helping Indian nation have fresh water for health and benefit of a better life, because they have clean water. So we can use that money that we're going to receive for the benefit of others. And with the higher vibrations, that means that we are going to be living in a vibration of love, and you cannot be sick if you are in a loving vibration. It's the lack of love that makes you sick. So med beds are coming out, if you haven't heard of those, and I can hardly wait. They reduce you back to around age 30. They take away your medical problems, and you can live longer, and you don't have to have the frustration and the strain of paying the taxes anymore. The tax situation is going to be reduced considerably to a minimal amount, just for maintenance, not for somebody's pocket to get richer and richer. So we're coming into some wonderful, beautiful opportunities of coming together, not only in our country, but as a planet, that we're going to have different boundaries. We're going to have different ways to travel to get there. We won't have the problems that COVID has presented for shutdown. We're going to have the freedom to be ourselves and move around as we choose, and be there in supportive ways of everybody rather than being afraid of them. It's how can I help you?
I like that. How can I help you? One of the most powerful phrases in the English language. Let's move on, because we're at the past, present and future part of the show. Now, what this means is that I'm going to ask you 3 simple questions about your past, your present, and your future. And if we get this right, the answers will give us a unique insight into the mind of game changer Marilyn Redmond. Are you game?
I'm game.
Fantastic. Let's have some fun. Now, look, Marilyn, you've got to imagine you can hear a clock ticking in the background. That's the sound of time passing by second after second. Imagine yourself traveling back in time to meet the young Marilyn Redmond, just starting out on her game-changing journey, just becoming the better version of herself. Now, Marilyn, I like her because she likes to ask questions. She asks you for one habit of yours that will help her become the best version of herself. What do you tell her?
I would tell her to learn to meditate, because you get your direction and guidance from within. The problem with the world today is they look to experts outside of themselves, and the doctors gave me medicines that addicted me. The minister said to stay in a marriage that was actually killing me. I don't look outside of myself for answers today. I had to learn to look within.
I like that. So don't look outside of yourself. Look within for the answers to your life.
Only you have the answers for you. They have the answers that work for them, but they might not work for you.
Yeah, see, now the thing is, when you're 15 years old or 16 years old, you don't have the confidence, do you, really, to go down that route, because it's easier or safer just to go with whatever your peers or your friends or your family or your bosses tell you to do.
Well, in my case, that was exactly right. I was living in a family of mental illness with addictions, and it was all about survival and fear and hurt and harm, trying just to struggle to, keep life going. And so I did what they did. They modeled to me what their illnesses and problems and habits were. And I was a good sponge. And the spiritual path told me I didn't have to live their life. I could live my own. Very
lucky, because I know a lot of people in the situation that you were in are still struggling to shed themselves of those shackles, and quite often they just don't make it because they just don't have somebody like you to offer them that advice or insight.
Well, spiritual growth is not an overnight thing. And so I was doing a healing circle at one point, and a bunch of people from Seattle showed up, and they all sat there in the healing circle and why are you here? And they said, I want to be enlightened. I want to be enlightened. Well, just like you turn on a light bulb, I wish it were that simple, but it's a day-by-day challenge to each day find what's not working and identify it, and then actually reframe it to be positive, and then so you can move beyond it. And so it's a lifelong journey I've been on this path for 36 years at this point, and I still find things that I need to reframe from the way it was when I was growing up and married to how it is today. And it's a constant, for me, it's a constant choice to do that. I actually wear a bracelet on my wrist that's flexible, it stretches. And if I find myself judging somebody, I immediately am aware of it. Today, I didn't used to be, because I was taught by my mother to judge very well. So I wear the bracelet to make me aware, and then I move it to the other wrist and reframe whatever I'm judging into something that is positive and supportive. And so I'm still, with 36 years, I'm still working on it. There's no real end. It's the journey that counts.
It's a work in progress. Let's move into the present. Marilyn, this is going to be a strange question for you, but what one achievement are you most proud of today?
Oh my gosh. I guess the one achievement I'm most proud of today is I have a conscious contact with my Creator every day when I meditate and throughout the day. It says in the Bible to pray. I'm not a Bible person anymore. I'm spiritual, but there's a lot of good wisdom in the Bible. And it says to pray incessantly, pray daily. And what I've learned is that I try to stay my focus all day on what's the next right indicated thing. And so if I'm doing the next right indicated thing, I'm in the moment, I'm in the now, my focus is right where it needs to be. It's not in the past, it's not in the future. I am being in reality. And so for me, that's been a huge change to move out of that fantasy of all the problems and move into what's right and what's real and what's true and what's love, and have that as my focus throughout the day. That, to me, is huge.
You don't sound anything at all like that frightened girl of 15 or 16 who just took the path of least resistance and found herself the victim of other people's shortcomings. You don't sound like the same person at all, are you?
I don't feel like the same person either. I've come to the point where I can actually have an opinion. I can speak up and share. This last weekend, I was at a spiritual group and they were talking about some things, and I shared my opinion, and not everybody agreed with it. And I didn't feel rejected. I didn't feel like I was ostracized or anything. I had enough self-esteem just to realize, that's their opinion and I don't have to buy into it. So, before I would have just been that great follower, and whatever somebody said, I went with, and would agree with them to be liked. And today I can have my own thoughts and my own path, and It's my path. I know today everybody has their own path, and it's not going to be just like mine, and that's okay. I have enough self-esteem to say I'm on my path and I'm doing what I need to do. And, you have the same right to, there's a slogan that says live and let live. That's been a really tough one for me to learn, that other people have the right to their opinions. I just might not have the same one.
Strange, isn't it, that you have to wait for experience. I have this theory that when we went to school, our teachers got life upside down, because when we went to school, our teachers would teach us a lesson and then they would test us. But when we left school, we found out that the way life really worked is first we're tested, and if we get through the test, then we've learned the lesson. It sounds strange that all of the stuff you're telling me now is stuff that you would never, ever hear that in school. The teachers just don't tell you that, do they?
Well, do you want to know why?
Go on then.
Well, as I said before, when this all started back in Atlantis, the dark forces have kept us into being submissive, oppressed, and they've infiltrated schools. I believe my higher power took me out of teaching about when things really changed in the school system in the States, because I was teaching, fortunately, how for the children to be creative and to be exploring and to be intuitive and to ask questions and learn by doing, instead of out of a book and a test. What they're doing in education now in the States is absolutely deplorable. It's strictly brainwashing. We didn't test kids every year. We didn't make them read out of the books. We had activities going on. And when I taught school, I always had all kinds of activities for them to learn the concepts rather than read it from a page. I actually learned a program that supported that, and we went to the administration and said, this is a really great way to teach, because the kids are really getting the benefit of it. And I could give you some marvelous examples. And, the response we got was, we have to tell the school board what page of the book you're on. Well, in other words, the kids are getting brainwashed from the books, and the teachers are told to teach what's in the book. I had a class do extremely well in a math test because they didn't use the typical book that had always been used, and they scored really high because they applied the principles of the situation rather than learning from rote. And they took away those books that the kids were using their ability to take a concept and apply it to something new and actually be successful. They teach people to think in a box. School has been set up as teaching people to be good followers and how to work on a assembly line, how to work in a store, but not how to be a thinker. Because if you had the thinker, then they would figure out that the government is telling you how to think.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you're talking, I'm nodding my head like crazy, because everything you say makes perfect sense. And unfortunately, we don't hear this enough. People are being taught to become consumers, debtors, workers, but not to be good people. And that's something we've got to change every day. Okay, let's move into the future. Let's move into the future. In 100 years' time, Marilyn, what would you like to be remembered for?
That's an interesting question, because I've never really thought about that particularly. But, I've heard, I was not taught to think for myself, so I'm still learning. I mean, I'm still growing, because I never had any goals because I knew they wouldn't happen anyway. So as far as the future, what I guess I'm finding out is that I'm leaving a legacy that if people are in tune with what I'm saying and what we're talking about today, they'll find my books and my interviews on YouTube and my blog, and they'll find other people too that are promoting being the person that you really were created to be, and that these pieces of information, as they read the books or listen to the YouTubes or whatever, they'll find answers that will work for them to make their life better. My life was so miserable. I mean, I was trying to kill myself, besides my husband trying to kill me. I wanted out. I didn't know how to necessarily do that because I was 3 years old, as I said. But if people can if they're really truly interested, the universe will bring them the answers. And I'm hopefully my books and my work that I do with my clients, and I do readings for people that are wanting to know where they are on their spiritual path and that kind of thing, that I can help bring a little spark of truth that will help them on their path to even be a better person too.
I'm pretty sure that you do that every single day, Marilyn. A little spark of truth that becomes a flame. Fantastic. Look, we have run out of time ages ago. I just wanted to say, Marilyn, it's been a truly amazing and inspiring experience getting to spend some time with you on Kizzi's Friday Gamechangers. I want to say thank you so much for sharing your insight and your wisdom.
Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed this, Kizzi. Your questions are terrific, and it's been a lot of fun.
The pleasure's been all mine. Well, the time I've spent with Marilyn has taught me that life is like a coin. You can spend it anywhere you want, but you only get to spend it once. Listen to Marilyn, and she'll tell you that life is what you make it. It always has been, and it always will be. This is a lesson that game changers like Marilyn Redmond are teaching us every day. Listen, learn, and innovate.